So we are here with Christian Arnold, who just competed in a bodybuilding show 3 weeks ago at the Phil Heath 2026, where he came out on top in the super heavyweight division against a strong competition. Christian, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Christian Arnold. I'm the manager here at the Bonham Barbell Club. Amateur NPC competitor. Competed in powerlifting. Been bodybuilding seriously for about 3 years. Competed in 2024. Did 2 shows, and then this most recent show in June of this year was my latest outing. And given the progress I've made, competing as a super heavyweight, it's roughly 250 pounds on stage in very good condition. So given that, my coach and I have decided that the next show we will try and tackle would be a national level show. We're targeting USA's next year in Vegas, where we'll have the opportunity to compete for a pro card. Realistically, I'm not delusional. I don't think I'm going to set out and win the thing in my first go, but goal will be, be in the mix, be competitive. I want to be first call out, be right there in the mix with those top guys. So already kind of just in that mindset of, prep basically for the next 13 months to be ready by July of 27. So that's my goal. But aside from the competitive aspirations, just what I do here, I coach in person, I coach online. Typically, my in-person clients are just lifestyle folks, people that just want to feel better, be stronger, and so my training is kind of geared towards that. I like to mostly train people on the barbell lifts, big compound functional movements, and getting people as strong as I can on those, and that typically will move the needle more so for people than taking somebody that's not acclimated to training and try to put them on a bodybuilding type split. I think you can get more bang for your buck focusing on compound lifts. But anyways, before I go too far down a rabbit hole there, that's a little bit about me and what I do here.
One of the first questions is, what got you into bodybuilding? What got me into bodybuilding? If without going too far down a rabbit hole, I will say, growing up in the 90s and 2000s, my parents got pretty into fitness. It was not long after my sister was born. My mom wanted to kind of get back to her pre-pregnancy weight. My stepdad at the time was training pretty consistently, and they got real into it. They were buying the magazines and going to the supplement shops, and we had some great gyms in Southern California that were real close to us, and it was just kind of part of our lifestyle. We would at this time I was maybe 10, 11, and actually I got my first gym membership at 12. We lied on the application form. You had to be 13 to join a 24-hour fitness. I got my $10 a month membership back then, and I actually had that membership for like another 10, 15 years and grandfathered in at that $10 rate. But that's kind of the beginning, the origins, because even at that young age, I remember with my parents getting the magazines, they'd have the posters of Jay and Ronnie and Branch and not so much Arnold. This was kind of who didn't grow up watching Arnold in all the movies? Terminator obviously was like one of my favorite movies. Hugely inspired by that, and at that age, just never thought it was something possible. But anyways, got stuck into the trenches, 17, 18, I actually got into the gym and started actually really trying to train and made some decent progress. Fell off for a couple years. I joined the military. I thought I'd get in real great shape in the military. Never happened. And then it was really getting out of the military. I was in the worst shape of my life, and that's really when this whole journey kicked off. That was 27 for me, and I'll be 35 this year. So that's the bodybuilding thing, though, that really came off the back end of competing in powerlifting. From 27 to about 30, 31 is when I did the bulk of my strength training, ultimately power lifted. And then from there, I got decently strong and decided to, try my hand at bodybuilding. I've always been a fan of the sport, and for the longest time, I just never thought I could do it. Don't have the genetics for it. And I just decided to try it. And now it's been 3-4 years down that path. And I see some potential that I didn't really see at the beginning. And so I'm just in that spot of just seeing how far I can take it.
Gotcha. So from this last bodybuilding show that you had to do, did you have to change your lifestyle and focus, like be more hyper focused on?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, bodybuilding is a 24/7, 365 commitment to begin with, but especially as you roll into a prep, it truly does become kind of all-encompassing. I mean, your entire day is consumed with bodybuilding. Yeah. It's all you think about from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, and like that doesn't change the fact that you have other responsibilities. I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm a business owner. I have multiple other things on my plate. I've got 15 acres that needs maintained, and all these different things, and those don't go away. But bodybuilding is the number one focus. So you have to find a way to stay on top of all these other things while still being able to give 100% to your daily process for your prep. And it's very hard to get that balance right. I don't claim to be able to do it. There are certainly things that take a hit. There are things that get pushed to the side or kicked down the road, procrastinated, because it's like the sole focus is on the daily process, checking your boxes and just making sure you're doing everything you can to be at your best. And it gets really difficult when food gets low, the cardio is high, sleep starts to take a hit, you're already full plate, just becomes even harder to manage. So prep is not for the faint of heart. If you're trying to do it at a high level, and be prepared for your whole life to effectively change. Your sole focus becomes your prep and being ready, and it requires a lot of modifications to one's lifestyle to truly be ready and give it your all.
So would you consider bodybuilding a sport?
That's a great question. There are aspects that make it a sport, but then there are other aspects that I think put it in a different category. I mean, if you're going to talk about competitive bodybuilding, getting on a stage and posing trunks and doing all of that, it's almost like a pageant, to be honest. Yeah. It's a subjective sport. There's not objective criteria. You don't get 5 points for a perfect rear lat spread or whatever. It is purely subjective, down to the preferences of the judges. Do I think having athletic ability lends itself well to being a good bodybuilder? Absolutely. The movements that we do for training require a high degree of body awareness and coordination and skill, much like an athlete would have, over a career of perfecting their craft. So I will say it's a sport. Some people may press me on that, but I will put bodybuilding in the camp of it being a sport, because ultimately, we're maximizing human performance. We're all the things we're doing are really in line with what a top athlete would be doing to maximize their potential in a given sport. And so it's just it just looks a little different than most, but yeah, I'd say it's a sport.
One of the big topics that I see is what are your thoughts about teenagers getting on performance enhancement drugs?
It's pretty widespread these days. I think social media has been both a blessing and a curse. It's ubiquitous, it's everywhere, and fitness has grown immensely, and not just bodybuilding, but everywhere you look, you're seeing younger and younger kids resorting to either peptides or anabolics. It's commonplace, and I feel like even just in the time that I've come up in the sport. You know, I really started training in like 2008, 2009, and back then all we had was like the bodybuilding.com forums, and there's some other forums around at that point where people would go for information, but there was no, you know, Facebook was barely a thing, there was no Instagram, YouTube was barely a thing, and so it was really, you know, people were kind of left to their own devices to figure out what to do. But now, I mean, you've got the taboo nature of drugs and performance enhancement has kind of shifted. You know, you have regular everyday folks, you know, I see it here in the gym, people come in and, oh, I'm on 3-4 different peptides, and I'm like, oh wow, that's crazy. You know, not to say that peptides are inherently bad, it's just, I think people, you know, people want a miracle pill. They want to, you know, they want a shortcut. They don't want to, you know, one, they don't want to educate themselves, and then two, you know, if they can take something that makes a job easier, they're going to do it. And who am I to be overly critical of this? So, you know, ultimately bodybuilders are doing the same thing. We all leverage, you know, different compounds, different things for different results, but usually it's off the back end of doing the research and knowing what these things do. I feel like for the younger generation, most are not doing that education beforehand, and the bigger takeaway here for the younger demographic, the teenagers and even young adults do not need performance enhancing drugs. Your hormone levels and just the way your body responds to training and food and rest, you know, from 16 to 23, 24, I mean, you're really not doing yourself any favors by leveraging these things at such a young age. You're really just going to get more out of a solid diet, a solid training routine, and good recovery practices, sleeping well, you know, maintaining good hydration, good electrolyte balance. You know, it's like these are the things that are going to move the needle the most, and you know, any kind of anabolics or really any kind of supplements you want to consider are just going to be like a cherry on top, the last 5-10% that are going to move the needle a little bit. But the basis is the diet, the training, the sleep and recovery modalities and practices. Like those are the big needle movers that I think get overlooked.
So yeah. Do you think gym splits matter?
Gym splits? Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, I think there's a wide variety of different splits that can be effective. I think, again, talking about this younger demographic, I think, you know, it matters less for folks in that category because they're new to training. Really, just about any training split can work for an individual like that. I think focusing on big compounds starting out and trying to progressively overload those and just get stronger over time is going to be the most bang for your buck for most people. But then, yeah, the training splits begin to matter more as you get more advanced, because like for someone in my position where, you know, I'm doing the amateur competing and you know, we get feedback from judges and we want to present the best physique on stage. Well, you know, we all have different strengths and weaknesses, you know, muscle imbalances, and with via the training split you can address these and bring up lagging body parts. So you want to, of course, structure your training in such a way that you're going to be bringing up weaknesses, and you know, if you have a stronger body part, let's say you can reallocate volume from that strong body part into your weaker body parts. You know, for me this off season, the priorities hasn't really changed much from my last off season. You know, I'm going to be focusing primarily on bringing up delts, chest, arms, and then also trying to bring up my legs as well. My back is a strong point, so I'm kind of just doing more maintenance volume there. So Yeah, I think it's training split is massively impactful. And then, yeah, as far as like just a structure standpoint too, you know, if you're not able to get recovered from your training, you know, by the time it's time to hit that same muscle group again, you know, then yeah, that kind of comes down to a split design. You want to design your split in such a way that you can come in, you know, train the muscle group effectively, get good stimulus, and then get out of the gym, rest, recover, come in again in, you know, 48 to 72 hours, maybe 96 hours for bigger body parts, and train it again, and try to eke out a little more than you did last time. And if you're able to do that sustainably, then you probably have a good training split. If you're burning out and needing a deload every 3 to 4 weeks because you're just frying your CNS trying to do too much in a singular session, or your sessions are not spaced properly to where you're kind of getting fatigue overlap from one session into the next, then yeah, that would be less than optimal as far as the split goes.
So what makes you keep on going, keeps you motivated on pursuing bodybuilding or just being a coach in general?
I love this, man. I love this stuff. You know, fitness and training has changed my life. I've always been, you know, the big fat kid, very low self-esteem. I was bullied, I was picked on, and getting into the gym and being able to change the way I look and just feel better in my own skin has been life-changing. And I've been able to help others do that, and it's almost as rewarding to me as my own journey, and it kind of gives me hope for a life after bodybuilding, because we all have to hang it up one day. We can't go all out for forever. There comes a point where we kind of transition into more maintenance mode. And but anyhow, what keeps me going? I want to see my potential. I'm competitive. I do have competitive aspirations. I do want to see what I can do on a national stage. You know, I'm a latecomer to this bodybuilding thing, as it's only been 3 years for me, and you know, I think that gives me at least another couple years to push, and I think I'm just kind of starting to scratch the surface here in terms of my potential. So yeah, I'm gonna go as far as I can, and ultimately I know that my own competitive resume is just going to help me as a coach, and that's something I plan to, you know, I do now, but ultimately will become a bigger part of what I do down the road. You know, as I kind of wind down my own bodybuilding career, that will leave me, you know, more just more time in my day to help more people with the coaching. So yeah, it's kind of, you know, I'm building a resume, building experience, trying to see what my own potential is, and then ultimately knowing that on the back end, that will just make me a better coach.
Gotcha.
And able to help more people.
So what are your cheat codes into building more muscle or losing fat or losing weight?
Cheat codes. I think the biggest one, and most people don't want to hear it, is you gotta be dialed in on your diet. Yep. Period, point blank, end of discussion. If you're, regardless of whether you're in a cut, you're in a bulking phase, if you're accruing body fat or cheating on your diet, you're self-sabotaging. You're shooting yourself in the foot. In the off-season context, if you're, you know, yes, the goal is to gain weight, but it's to gain lean muscular body weight. You know, if you're accruing too much fat, you're just shortening your off-season window, and you're gonna have to shut it down early and go back into a fat loss phase. And if you're constantly having to oscillate back and forth, you're just not making the progress you could be. You know, ideally, your massing phases are as long as humanly possible. You should have a slow, steady rate of gain. Usually, you know, a pound a week for most people is a pretty good spot. You know, when it comes to dieting, yeah, people cheat on the diet, or they, you know, they'll run their diet, and, you know, their training quality falls off. They'll start half-assing the cardio, and they go, oh, why am I stalling here? Well, it's because, you know, your food gets low, and then you don't want to move, you don't want to expend the same level of energy, and then everything falls off. It's like you have to maintain that same quality of training, the same intensity of cardio. Like everything has to kind of stay the same, and it really all hinges on the diet. Training is immensely important, but if the diet is off, you're going to be spinning your wheels. So that's the biggest take. If I can impart one thing on someone looking to do this seriously, you've got to be dialed in on the nutrition, and it's a process. It takes time. You're not going to just flip the switch one day and be perfect. It's been a process for me, and I've continually gotten better, and your palate begins to change. The things you used to crave start to change, and it does get easier, but it just requires consistency and sticking with it. So if there's one hack, just get really good at nailing your nutrition, and you're going to make progress.
So the next one is, what does your gym split look like?
My gym split, so I've just recently changed it after the show. I'm kind of trying something new that I've never done before. I've typically, previously I was kind of on your typical bro split or body part split, chest Monday, back Tuesday, rest, legs, that kind of thing, just hitting everything. My priority body parts twice a week, legs say once a week, back once a week. I'm now running basically an upper-lower split. So it's upper-lower rest. So in a you can run through in a 6-day cycle. You can touch everything twice. So that means in a 7-day cycle, I can touch all muscle groups 3 times. So what that does is it brings down your per session volume, so you can typically run less working sets. Your session duration shortens a bit, which I think lends itself to higher quality sets. If you're doing 20 working sets in a workout, what is the quality of those last 5 to 10 working sets? You're already fatigued. Those sessions are probably running close to 2 hours, 2+ hours. It's like, I think the quality starts to fall off immensely. Whereas if you're training more frequently and your per session volume is lower, I think the quality of that volume is going to be better. And that's kind of what I'm seeing already. Granted, it's been 2 weeks, and I'm still kind of ramping back into things. And after the show, strength obviously took a big hit, so I'm just kind of taking things slow and steady as I ramp back up. But I'm already a fan, and there's a lot of variability and flexibility that you can build into an upper-lower split. For instance, say if I get into this program another 6, 7, 8 weeks, and lifts are progressing and systemic stress is increasing, you can always plug in an extra rest day as needed, and you're still hitting everything twice a week. So say we train legs today, let's just say, tomorrow's a rest, but come Thursday, say I'm just still smoked, man, I'm feeling run down. I can plug in a second rest day on that Thursday, and then I can still hit my upper-lower rest, and within that 6 or 7 day window, I'm still training every body part twice. So I think that allows for a lot of flexibility and variability to make sure that you're able to continue progressing, get recovered. So I'm a fan so far. I'll let you know further down the road if my final thoughts.
So with someone's volume who's on performance enhancement drugs be different than someone who's natural?
Yes.
Would it affect a natural person more?
Yeah, I think the natural lifter is going to have to be more mindful of their recovery. Ultimately, that's what performance enhancing drugs do, is they just enhance recovery. Yes, they can increase strength on certain movements, which will ultimately drive more stimulus to the muscle. But the main modality by which anabolics work is they're just going to enhance the speed at which you can recover from training. So yes, for the natural lifter, I don't know that like for instance, an upper lower split where you're training everything 3 times a week. Yeah. This is where it's very person dependent, because there are some guys out there that can, regardless of whether we're talking enhanced or natural, there are just some guys that have an insanely high work capacity. They can do 20, 30 sets per session and train 6 days a week, or even doing 2-a-days, training to failure on every set. You know, guys like Branch Warren that just, you look at the way they train and it's so intense. The reps are off the chart. They're just clanging and banging. It's like, man, if I trained like that, I'd be smoked in a week and I'd have to deload, you know, whereas there's some guys that just seem to tolerate it well. So I think it's very person dependent. You're gonna know very quickly if you're overtraining. And again, I think, you know, this is a common trope in discussion you hear is like, you know, there's no such thing as overtraining, just under eating. Yes, I think your nutrition should match your output level in your training. You know, if your diet is set up right and your sleep is on point, you know, you can get recovered from a lot. You just have to make sure you're putting adequate fuel in the tank and making sure you've got enough rest. You know, sleep is huge. People neglect that, and you know, I think dialing in one's sleep can unlock a ton of potential for progress. But generally speaking, yeah, I would say that the natural lifter is going to have to watch the recovery and kind of modulate that a little closer than an enhanced.
Because I see a lot of individuals, especially beginners, they follow like a bodybuilding.
Yeah, they go, oh, what was CBum's split for the Olympia? Let me do that. And it's like, one, that split is tailored, again, like we talked about, you know, most high-level guys are going to be following a split that is tailored to bring up their specific weaknesses. So, you know, if you're not CBum, I don't know why you'd want to follow his plan. And then two, yeah, the volume amounts and the training frequency is to be that of a, you know, 260, 270 pound enhanced, you know, genetic freak. So, you know, why you would want to follow his split, I have no idea. You know, it's something like, you know, your training split is something so personalized to you. It's like, yeah, Bryan, you know, you look like you've got a great toothbrush at home. I really want to use your toothbrush. It's like it's on the same level. It's like, no, that's your toothbrush for you. Like, I need my toothbrush. Mm-hmm. You know, it's for, yeah. Anyhow, okay. So
do carbs make you fat?
They can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can overeat on carbs for sure. Carbs are, the way I describe carbs to people, it is your workout fuel or activity fuel. If you are going to use, you know, like I want to put the vast majority of my carbohydrates for the day in and around the training workout. I want them pre and post. Mm-hmm. And then as, you know, if you're an active individual, then yeah, you can probably keep your carbs a little higher throughout the day. If you get done training and then you go sit at a desk for 6-7 hours and you're not moving around a bunch, you probably don't need carbohydrates quite so high. And the thing to remember with carbs too is, like, yes, pre and post workout nutrition is important, but you know, the carbohydrates that you're going to eat, say right before you're in your pre-training meal, before you go train, those are not necessarily the carbs that are going to be helping fuel that session. Yeah. Realistically, it's the carbs you probably ate last night. Yeah, right. You know, it takes a while for, you know, carbs to be broken down and glucose shuttled to the muscle. That doesn't happen in the span of a couple hours. You know, it takes significantly longer. So just being mindful of when you train and, you know, making sure you have adequate carbs to fuel that training.
Gotcha. Right.
Yeah, but you can absolutely get fat overeating carbs.
Yeah. That's it, Christian.
Sweet, bro.
I appreciate it.
Dude, my pleasure, man. A great session today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Built Simple Squad. We just finished our leg session and the Q&A. I hope y'all enjoyed this video today, and I hope y'all gained some knowledge from Christian, his standpoint in bodybuilding, his standpoint in the way he approaches bodybuilding. I know I gained knowledge myself. I was humbled. There was levels to it. The adductor machine, oh my, I don't want to talk about it. He had 25 reps on that. If I were to do that, I could barely even get one. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.